So we're going to do some work. Part of this, what you're here today, is not just to listen, it's to do some work. So I want you to write down the answer to these questions. What question did you have on your mind when you came to SuccessCon? What was nagging at you that you hope to answer here? What desire is in your heart? And what challenge are you trying to resolve it being at SuccessCon? It's what it's about. So let's take 1 minute just to answer some of those questions. Write them down. Be thoughtful about it. Take about 10 more seconds. Okay, I'm not going to ask for your answers. These are your answers to have for your life. But I want you to be thoughtful about them, and I wanted to get you in a state of mind of thinking about what you were trying to solve in being here, because I think as we talk throughout this next 50 minutes, some of those things are going to come clearer for you. If you're aware of what the challenges are, and I'm going to share with you how to think about challenges as a small business and as an owner of a business and somebody who is successful, some of those things are going to start to get clear for you. You're going to see a different path forward if you're thoughtful and you did the exercise. And by the way, I wanted to do this exercise because it's all I have today. I have no slides and fancy, so hang on a second. We did test this several times, and okay, I got to just do it a little differently. I wanted to do this exercise because I've always wanted to try it. When I was on the executive team at Infusionsoft, we had a chance to meet Jim Collins, who wrote Good to Great and some really great books about how to build awesome companies based on people and culture. And this is what Jim Collins did. He walked into the room. We flew to Boulder, Colorado. Our team was there. He walked in. He didn't say hello. He didn't say, hey, did you have a nice flight? Is your hotel okay? Did everybody have breakfast? He came in and said, get out a piece of paper, get out a pencil, write a line down the middle of the paper, and we started to work. And he was just all business, and he's from the start unpacked some really, really tough questions. And then we talked about them, those tough questions, and he just really got after it. So we're going to do a little bit of that today. Today's going to be an opportunity for you to feel a little vulnerable, possibly as you think about who you are, because really what we're talking about is changing your identity to change the game. And I'm talking about something that I've called the breakthrough mindset. And the breakthrough mindset is really designed for people who are successful. But success is an interesting little partner, because as you become more successful and you grow and you learn and your business succeeds, it causes a whole bunch of problems because it creates an identity for you. And I get it. You started a business. You were successful. It was your idea. It was your money. It was your blood, sweat, and tears in the early days. And now you're hoarding information. You're the hero in the business, and you're the know-it-all. And by the way, that's a nice recipe for not having any more growth, right? And it's hard to fight that because your identity gets locked up and entangled with your business and the success of your business. I'm going to help you think through how you can untangle that. So that's what we're talking about today. And I'm thrilled to be here because my experience at Icon back in 2011, and this is, it was an experience that changed my life, and I had the opportunity to work at Infusionsoft for 7 years in that process. So I'm glad to be back here up on stage trying to help you. So I was talking to a buddy of mine. His name's Bobby. He runs a moving company. Bobby was a mover. He lifted stuff into trucks for a lot of his life, had a tough life. Bobby figured out that he could be a business owner. And so here's a guy that didn't have a lot of schooling or education, but he started this moving company. I asked him how it's going. And he's been doing it about 5 years. He said, it's great, but I can't hire any people. I'm really struggling to hire people. I said, well, why is it? We've got a shortage of people that can lift heavy stuff or what? And he said, well, when I started the business, I had nothing. I didn't have a brand. I didn't have a lot of trucks. I had nothing. So I would hire anybody. I'd put anybody to work. And sometimes that didn't work out very good because those weren't really good people. That was the last job available to somebody, right? Now, I got repeat customers. I got great reviews on Yelp. I've got repeat customers. I got a great referral business. Now I'm scared that I hire some of those people that I used to hire, and they're going to ruin my business, and I'm going to lose what I have. So I'm sort of stuck. I don't know how to hire good people. I don't even know how to go find people that could help me because I just hired anybody. I used to just hire anybody. So I got talking to Bobby. That's a classic example of having some success and then getting stuck. Because what worked a couple of years ago when you didn't have a lot at risk, when you weren't successful, when you weren't somebody who was on top of it, you did things without hesitating. But now that you've got it working, all of a sudden you're not sure how to go forward. You're not sure how to train people. You're not sure how to build culture. Because when you started, you didn't need any of that. And yet you've become the persona of this business. And the persona is what's going to get in your way from getting to that next level. So that's what we're talking about. When I started writing this slide, I started with, are you stuck? And I thought that's the question I want to ask, is are you stuck someplace in your business? And as I thought more about it, I'm like, everybody in here is stuck, guaranteed. If you're successful, you're stuck because there's some things that you don't know that you've got to know because your business is different and more successful than it was in the past. And if your business isn't successful, you're also stuck because you don't know how to get it to be successful. So this is a position we all share as humans. The challenges of trying to do something important for the world are difficult, right? And whether you're successful, and I think, what I'm talking about is mostly for people who are successful, how to change your identity to continue that success. But where are you stuck? So think about that. What are the things that are keeping you from doing the things that you believe you can, from growing your business, from having a healthier relationship with a spouse or with other family members, or doing something in your community or in your church or whatever it is? Think about for a minute, where are you stuck and what is keeping you from that? Is it that you don't really have the stuff that it takes? Maybe the circumstances aren't right. You just haven't learned it. Think about some of those things for you. It could be a lot of things. But what's keeping your business from growing? What's caused, the most important things that you've done in the past are now stalling? Those are the things I want you to think about. I want to tell you a little story about a caterpillar. I'm going to attribute this to my friend Eric, who's sitting there. We were at dinner one night, and he started telling me the story. Of course, we all know about the caterpillar, but he told me this piece of the story that was super interesting. What do we know about the caterpillar in the story? What's the story we have about a caterpillar, right? It's what? Kind of fuzzy, fast or slow? Slow. What does it do all day? Eat. So we got an overeater, slow, not really attractive, it's kind of creepy, right? That's the story we tell ourselves about the caterpillar, which is all sort of based on fact, right? What's interesting is the caterpillar does spend all its time eating, and doesn't seem like a super important job. And by the way, the caterpillar gets born on a leaf and really never moves from the plant or the tree that it was born in. It's really restricted. not really able to do anything great, very limited sphere of influence and impact. But then it starts this process of building a cocoon. And, we all know from second grade, we did this, got to see this happen and this evolution happen. What's interesting to me about the caterpillar is that the caterpillar doesn't grow wings and become a butterfly, right? Doesn't grow antenna and become a butterfly. This was the part of the story that Eric enlightened me on. The caterpillar actually uses its enzymes to turn itself into a soup, or just a glob of liquid, thick liquid in this cocoon. In other words, it completely stops being a caterpillar and it just becomes matter. And yet, in the DNA of the caterpillar is something called an imaginal disc. And this imaginal disc is the blueprint for the butterfly. Then all this cellular matter that isn't anything but matter organizes around the blueprint for the butterfly, and out comes the butterfly. That is an awesome biological metaphor for what we're going to talk about today. And this butterfly, which came from a slow-witted, localized, overeating caterpillar, now migrates 3,000 miles. And interestingly, this is the one animal on the earth that doesn't return from the migration. It migrates and then over generations comes back. But the butterfly that started as a caterpillar, limited to a tree, now can infinitely fly, right? I mean, it's an infinite change. It's not an evolution, it's a transformation. And that metaphor is what we're talking about, because everybody, as humans, has infinite potential. We have that DNA in us to be what it is we want to be, to fulfill our dreams. Sure, we have challenges. A lot of times it doesn't seem like it's possible. But I'd like you to take this leap of faith with me that this is true. That inside of you, and I think if you look inside of you, everybody that's here started probably, I love coming to these events because you talk to people who were in bankruptcy, you talk to people who had nothing, you talk to people who were homeless, and they found a way to do something great. They impacted the world, they helped people, they started businesses. Most people that are successful didn't start with success. They started with a dream, right? And so there's so much evidence in these conferences like SuccessCon and working with entrepreneurs of people who you can see have this absolute infinite potential and discovered it. And you've all done it. I'm going to guess you've all done it. And I'm also going to guess that somewhere along the way something happened. What was infinite and what is infinite got finite. It got finite because we started listening to stories of other people and we started telling ourselves those stories and we believed those stories. Who could tell you a story about yourself maybe that you're not sure you believe? I don't know, parent, teacher, coach. Some people who love us love to tell us stories. Maybe because they'd like us to not be something so they can feel better about themselves. Maybe you don't feel like you're worthy enough or you're good enough to do what you need to do. Or maybe the story you tell is that you're better than everybody, right? But all these stories, all these words, all this language starts to pile up on your infinite potential, and pretty soon what do you have? Finite potential. In fact, leave off potential. You have walls and limits, and that's where we are in life all the time. We're in and out of this space. And it's sad because when you're feeling infinite potential, which all of you have felt, you know you can do anything. You see your future, you see the possibilities, you're undaunted in that. And then there's other times when you just can't see your way through it, right? And I'm going to tell you, the reason when you are stuck and you can't see your way through it is because these stories you've listened to and you've convinced yourself that you can't. And people have been telling you that, or that you're not good enough, or that you're too good, right? The stories are unlimited. None of them are good or bad. They're just stories, and we got to live with them, right? So we're going to talk about how to maybe change some of that. These stories then start to create your identity. And it's interesting, in a business, when you're the owner, your identity starts to become what? The business. It's really hard to separate you from the business. Has anybody ever read the book Built to Last by Jim Collins? Yeah, we got a few people. Like Jim Collins, in this book, tried to teach, or taught, hoped people tried to learn, that he was trying to help people be a clock builder instead of a time teller. A time teller is somebody at the company who everybody has to come up to and ask, what time is it? And Jim said, hey, how about building a clock? Then you aren't the person that has to tell everybody what time it is. Of course, it feels good when you're the only guy that knows, or the only person that knows what time it is, because everybody has to sort of come ask you, and you're the most important person in the company. But when you build a clock, now your identity can be removed from the business, and it's not dependent on you. That kind of makes sense, but it's also really hard to do, because it feels good to be the one who everybody needs. It feels good to be the one who's the know-it-all. It feels good to be the person who started all this. It feels good to be the person who gave all of you these jobs, right? It feels good. It happens to keep you from progressing, though. And sometimes to get to where you want to be, it's not going to feel good for a little while, right? And that's really the challenge. And I think it's the challenge of any leadership, is you've got to get out of being the hero so you can become the guide. And we're going to talk about those two words, hero and guide. And the world's sort of set up for heroes, but it doesn't work out so well. When we all start to become guides, that's when leadership really starts to change the future. So, these identities, the identity we have is usually sort of focused on our past. I'm sure none of you are in this category, but imagine people you know who we might call trophy polishers, or people who love talking about what they did back then, how awesome they were, the company they built, when they were killing it in their business and they had success. We have people who will go all the way back to high school and tell those stories, right? But these stories are what keeps you in a rut. And I'll call it the rut of success even, right? You don't have to be in a rut of struggle. You can be in a rut of success, which is you learn to play the game of business. You learn how to always make sure you're positioned to look good. You make sure you naturally make the political connections you need to make it work, right? That's the rut of success. By the way, it doesn't pay off. It sort of holds you together, but it's not how you get to the big thing. It's not how you get to the big thing. So you get stuck. You get stuck in this world and game of stories and in a rut, and knowing how to do it and having it wired, and you can mail the check in, and you're just in charge, and your identity is the hero, so everybody comes to you and asks you what the answer is, and you're just playing that game all the time. But literally, you're limiting your growth, you're limiting your performance, you're limiting your happiness. See if any of that starts to make sense to you as you think about the three questions you asked earlier. Is any of these words I'm saying, you imagine them getting in your way of those three things? Are you feeling those kinds of things? So, let's talk a little bit about heroes, villains, and guides. Most of you probably know heroes and villains. So I'm telling you that most of us want to be heroes. I'll give you an example. I'm driving here from Phoenix. I'm on the freeway, I-8, coming over here. Guy in front of me in the passing lane, left lane, going slow. I'm ticked off. Because why can't this guy be an awesome driver like me and go fast? Why doesn't he know that the left lane's for passing? Pretty soon, he's the villain and I'm the hero. I'm feeling pretty awesome, and I'm angry at him because I'm the hero in this, right? You can't have a story of a hero without having the story of a villain. So if you're the hero of your business, I guarantee you got a list of villains. Those villains could be your employees. Those villains could be your boss. The villain might be your spouse. Almost guaranteed, sorry to say it. Could be your kids, could be your parents. Could be the person you don't even know in the car in front of you on the freeway. But we go through these experiences every day. I do it, you do it. I'm aware of all this. I still found myself being the hero on the freeway, villainizing the guy in front of me for going too slow. That's not helping me. That's not helping me be better and make the world better, right? All of those interactions, all those stories start to translate into me limiting my performance, my growth, and my happiness. So, we're going to talk about heroes, villains, and guides. I'm not going to read all these, but heroes, you can imagine, they're sort of focused on the result. They're focused on themselves. They're focused inwardly. And they're focused on the past. And it's really about them aggrandizing who they are. So think about that for a minute. Do you know anybody who you'd put in the hero category? Have you ever had a boss? Yes, every boss probably. I'm going to say, if you had 10 bosses, you're going to say 9 out of 10 acted like heroes. They were command and control. They wanted to manipulate people. It was political, right? Compare that to a guide identity, who's thinking about not the past, but how can they help the present grow into the future? How can they help other people? These are your greatest mentors. All of us probably have one or two people who have made us better, who have brought us forward, who've lifted us up, right? That's the guide leader. That's the identity of the guide. Outward thinking, in service of others, not trying to live on who they've been, but trying to help others become something, right? So ask yourself, can you recognize people in your lives that have been heroes and guides? I'm going to say, if we took a poll, more people know more people that are heroes. Fewer people know fewer people that are guides. Let's change that, right? And in style of Jim Collins, who are you? Who are you every day? Are you the hero? Are you thinking about maintaining your status quo, knowing it all, being the one who built the business, the hero in this whole business we have, and it can't go on without you, and if your persona ever leaves, the business dies, and you know it, and everybody knows it. So when you say, I'd like to hire my brother to be in this business, everybody says, okay, even if that brother has no qualifications. Right? So ask yourself, who are you? And more importantly, can you see the infinite potential you have to literally just make a mind shift change? You don't need training to go from hero to guide. Can you see that? This is a choice. But it's a hard choice. So the training that you need is the awareness and learning how to recognize the patterns and understanding when you're behaving in a way and being okay with it, and then starting to strive to be that guide leader. So, pencils up now. Let's do a little work again. I'd like you to write down how you're being a guide and how you're being a hero. Find one instance for both. Like, just try and examine your life over the last month. Has there been an instance, for me, it was yesterday driving, and I probably, if I spent a little more time, I probably was a hero this morning too. But think about, this is part of the exercise, an awareness of when you're acting like a hero. By the way, here's the easiest way to know. Who have you villainized recently? Who have you judged to be less than you? And that'll reveal to you the instance where you were acting like a hero. This happens all the time in business and all the times in family, and it's why we have dysfunction, right? And then, find a time in your life where you were the guide. And remember what that felt like, to absolutely lift someone, coach someone, and help someone be better. And share what you know, not for you to be awarded a prize for it, but because you really cared about that person, and then you saw the benefit of that. So take 30 seconds and get those thoughts down. Okay, the next part of this exercise is asking yourself, how is my identity adding to being stuck or adding to a breakdown? So think about your identities. Are you the boss? That's an identity. Are you an employee? That's an identity. A partner? Are you a father, mother, son, daughter, brother, sister? Think about those identities that you have in those different worlds that you are a part of. And see if that identity is causing you to be less than yourself. Where is it causing you to be less than the person you want to be? And for most of us, we could spend a lot of time on boss, probably. You might start to notice that one identity causes more dysfunction than another identity. They aren't all created equal. Like you might be really good. I'll give you my own vulnerable example. I think I'm really pretty good at work trying to help people be better, seeing their potential. And, you know, I'm probably more critical of my kids than I am of any employee that's ever worked for me, right? I don't treat them, I should be doing the same in both worlds. But my identity as a father probably is causing me to be more of a hero at home than I am at work. I think I'm more of a guide at work and I'm more of a hero at home. Not helping me, right? So think about where those identities that you have might be causing you to have to limit your growth, to limit your performance, and to limit your potential. And as you start to examine that, you'll see where you got an opportunity to work on that identity. Because that's the work we're doing here with the breakthrough mindset, is work on the identity. You're tempted to go work on your business. You're tempted to go work on your marriage, but really the answer is your identity. And we're going to spend a little time thinking about how to do that. One way that I learned, this is where the breakthrough mindset came from. So I got invited to take a bike ride through Germany, Denmark, Sweden, and Norway in 2014. And it changed my life. And I didn't think my life needed changing. I was a chief people officer at Infusionsoft. I'd had a career. I had been an investment banker. I worked on Wall Street in New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles. I had a great family, a wonderful wife, 4 great kids. I didn't really think I needed to go do some work. I went on this bike ride because it sounded like a real adventure. Turned out, I learned a lot about being a hero. It turned out that I needed to get away from my identities so I could see them differently. And when I did, I didn't like everything I saw. And it helped me come back and be different. So one of the keys to this work of the breakthrough is to break away, right? And by that I mean literally to detach from your stories and the storytellers, the distractions and the noise of your life. Because when you are caught up in the swirl of that and the tornado, you can't see it clearly, and truthfully, you can't see that you are the problem. And it's guaranteed you are. If you're having a struggle, it's because you are the problem. That's hard to hear. That's hard for us to know. But when you're having dysfunction and your business isn't growing, or you've got a relationship problem, we all want to say it's not us. But let me tell you, it's us. And the more quickly we can see that it's us and learn the techniques to recognize it, that's when really infinite potential starts to seem real to us. Until then, it's just an oppression of I can't get out of this, right? I don't know what to do. I don't seem to have any choices, right? That's the finite world of stories and storytellers. So you get away from all that, you can look back at it and then see yourself as your infinite potential, away from these storytellers. That's what I learned when I went on this bike trek, and that's what this is about. Because ultimately, go take a heroic journey far from these stories, far from the noise, far from the world that confines and constrains you, and create a new identity. That's the identity of infinite potential. That breakaway produces in you a belief in who you are, and you get to know yourself at your very core when you strip all that away. And here's some of the things that sort of get you stuck. And when you break away from them, you get to see it differently. Just think about me when I was Chief People Officer at Infusionsoft. When I'm riding my bike up a mountain in Norway, and it breaks, and it's raining, and the wind's blowing, and I don't know anybody, and I don't know the language, do you think anyone cares I'm the Chief People Officer at Infusionsoft? Think anyone cares about that identity that I have, that I live on every day back home? Nobody cares. I'm just Hal Halladay. I'm just a drenched, tired, sad-looking bike rider at the moment, right? I expected it to be sunshine every day. Why wouldn't the sun shine for me if I traveled all the way to Norway to ride a bike? At least the sun should shine every day. Turns out it didn't. It rained a lot. And the wind blew, and it wasn't flat. Why would I ever think I was entitled to sunshine, downhill the whole way, my bike to work constantly, and have why would I? But I think I felt entitled to that. That would have made the great bike ride. Turns out there were lots of hills, there was lots of rain, and what I realized is nobody knew me as Chief People Officer at Infusionsoft, but I had more people want to help me. Maybe it's just because I looked so sad and beaten down. I don't know. I had more people want to help me on this journey. Strangers who had no reason, no incentive to help me, but they wanted to help. They wanted to help Hal Halladay, not the Chief People Officer. There was nothing in the game for them, just helping humanity. I saw the world get smaller, not bigger. This breakaway for me is the reason why I'm here. It's the reason why I'm not the Chief People Officer at Infusionsoft, because I could see a different future for me, and it's helping people understand these concepts. So it was a moment for me that is just, it's special. And it's interesting that when you are out away from everything in nature, and you are just you and the earth, and in this case riding a bike, but it wouldn't have to be a bike, and how you get from one place to the other is by your own power, and everything that you eat and need for safety and protection and shelter is on your bike. You get down to who you really are. That experience is powerful, and the time starts to change. It was like a shift in the time continuum. Like days seemed like weeks, and weeks seemed like days. Like the whole thing changed. I'd never experienced anything like that. It was so powerful. And it came in combination with an awareness of what this was all about. So think about these things. This is the problem, is all this stuff that we're tied up in all day. And by the way, you can't get away from this unless you're a gazillionaire, and then if you are, you want more of this, not less, right? You just have to make an intentional effort every once in a while to break away from this stuff so you can see it clearly and then go back and work on it. You don't have to leave forever. You just every once in a while have to break away from these things that are the swirl of your life so you can see them more clearly so you can work on them. So here's some of the things that I discovered about this breakaway experience that I've had. And I've done it. I also went to New Zealand and did it. And in 3 weeks, I'm going to ride my bike from Budapest to Prague with the same guy who's my partner in this business. And we're taking some other people. And then he's going to do some of this in Ireland later in the year. But these are some of the things that, like, this breakaway can create for you. Really powerful things that everyone would want to have in their life. But when you're in a rut, these are rut busters, right? When you're in a rut, you can't see these and you can't experience them. Innovation happens when these things are available to you. The rut keeps you from creativity. You're not forced to be creative. The rut keeps you from having grit. When you're in the groove and it's the same and you're holding on to your status and your identity, most of these things that would be game changers in your business, you don't have access to them because you're locked into a way of doing and a way of being that worked last year or 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And by the way, for some people in this room, and one woman I talked to this morning, your business has tripled in the last year, right? So whatever you were and whatever was working a year ago isn't working today. And if you're hanging on to it, you know, and the success of that, you're going to break down, right? So this, what a great, awesome benefit to triple your business. And it comes with this heavy cost of, well, if I don't change my identity, it's not going to work, right? So it's just a cool opportunity to grow yourself, to face that challenge head on, and face your identity and how it's going to impact your business. So I've left a handout that's on here on the left that talks about everyone has infinite potential, to summarize that the voices and the stories cause this breakdown. And by the way, it starts to limit your infinite potential. When you can break away from all that mess, you can start to see it clearly. And then ultimately you break through. Now, the little diagram at the bottom here, it's not all clean. Those aren't straight lines. You're not going to magically figure everything out. Life isn't like that. But you will be able to see and make sense of the chaos and the entanglement so much better once your identity has stepped away and you can start to make it clear. So here's my promise to you. You can preserve your identity. You can hang on to those past successes, and you can put your business at risk. It's a promise. Or you can let go of your identity and risk losing this hero status of yours to grow and preserve your business. That's your choice. It's an awesome choice. Hang on to the trappings of success and hero status and risk your business. Or go figure out an identity for the future, not the identity of your past, and grow and preserve your business. That's the choice you have. Hi, Clayt. Clayt's a great example of it. His keynote yesterday addressed some of this. The limits of your growth are in this mindset. And I just want you to think about this choice that you have. And it's a hard choice to make. And in the swirl of the business and in the entanglement of all the stories that you hear and are told and tell yourself, it's hard to see. When you can break away your identity from the problem, then you can start to see it and change it. So, a couple of pictures of me, you can tell just how tough this was for me at points. But I took my son to New Zealand with me. This opportunity to see the world differently and to experience, to get away from all that noise and distraction is critical to your clarity. It gives you this chance to reconnect with your infinite potential and break through those finite walls that the stories create. So this business called the Breakthrough Mindset, just briefly give you a glimpse into it. It's about having an immersive workshop of 2.5 hours and limiting it to 35 people who can really get in and ask these kinds of questions that I posed today. And then there's a follow-on continuous learning and awareness activities and experiences and assignments that go along with that, because it's constant work. It never really goes away. You will cycle in and out of hero and guide all the time. You just need to spend more time in guide than you spend in hero, right? And so it's constant work. And the better you get at the awareness and understanding how to get away from the problem so you can see it, then you can start to make the progress. And then ultimately, if you really want to see time bend and have the clarity, we're taking these trips. And some of them will be on a bike, some of them will be on a hike, some of them will be on a service trip to some third world country where you can go get away from the things, your problems and the dysfunction, so you can see yourself differently. Because really, what happens is, the world stays the same. You see the world differently, but it's not because the world's changed. It's because you've changed. And you'll see the problem differently. That's the whole game we're trying to get here. That is the game changer, is to be able to look at the problem differently. But as long as your identity is entangled in the problem, you won't be able to see it. So that breakaway gives you that chance to see it differently and start to reconnect to an identity that then goes back to the problem and attacks it from a different way, from a way that has a greater understanding, where you see yourself with infinite potential and the problems start to seem small. So that's the challenge. That's how we're coming at it. I'd love to, if you want to, if you want to text me, this is my number, right? This isn't a text app. I'm not marketing to you. If you want to talk to me about how to do this, text me. We'll set up a call. If you want to talk to me while I'm here, I'm talking to people about this. I'd be happy to get on the phone with you and listen to the things that you're challenging you and give you any coaching that I could to help you. And also, if you want to talk to me about being a part of the workshop, we're doing a workshop in April. It's limited to 35 people. And by being here at SuccessCon, we're going to knock off $150 from that workshop. I'm doing this with a partner who he's leading these bike rides. This guy's a professor of leadership at ASU. His name's Dr. Lane Knighting, and he's been teaching innovative ways of leadership and leadership experiences in his career. He's helped us at Infusionsoft. He's run leadership work for my teams at Infusionsoft. He's a great partner. His dream is to cycle in every country in the world, so he's got a 25-year plan to do that. He's a crazy dreamer. He's a great coach, great dream manager, and he's a great partner. And he and I are riding with some others on a breakaway from Budapest to Prague. It starts on April 23rd. I'm starting to feel the butterflies about it already. Think back to these questions. I'm hoping when you put these questions through the filter of this conversation, you can start to see your problems a little bit differently. You can approach them differently. Maybe not perfectly, but you can start to get a glimpse at how to come at this when you can see where you're being a hero or where you could be a guide, where you're villainizing people, and where the stories are getting in your way of getting to these three things. So that's all I'm going to talk, unless someone has some questions, and I think we're about out of time. But if you want to chat with me, text me. We'll set something up, or find me. I'm happy to talk to anybody about enrolling in the workshop, how to do that, or coaching, or dream manager, or anything we can do, Elaine and I could do to help you break through to get to the other side of your success, your growth, and your happiness. So thank you very much.